How humans accidentally created cats. Now I'm curious about this. This is Noxed. Oh, he's got 2,100 subscribers. I'm subscribing. I'm curious about it because me and my wife have a 4-legged child that is a menace, absolute menace. It's a feline. What's funny is our cat acts like a dog because our cat actually plays fetch, like literally plays fetch. And then our dog acts like a cat. And I'm just curious on how these tigers, these alpha hunters got so petite and tiny.
For most of human history, cats were irrelevant. Not dangerous, not useful, not interesting. Just small predators hunting mice in the dark, completely indifferent to human existence. And yet somehow, out of all the animals humans could have domesticated, cats ended up everywhere. There are more than 600 million domestic cats on Earth today. They sleep on our laptops, knock glasses off tables for no reason, stare at walls at 3 a.m.
So that's one of the reasons why I had to move my office from its previous location, because I'd be streaming and then the little one would jump onto the desk and would be walking across and then start touching things and everything. And then he'd sit in my lap for the 2 hours I was streaming or the 5 hours I was streaming and just sit there the entire time. And it was just like, yeah, or he'd try and get up on he would be knocking stuff behind the green screen while I was streaming because he'd climb on the shelves and everything. So couldn't do that anymore. But yeah, staring at the wall, I'm not sure about that. There have been instances where he stares at the wall and tries to hunt something that isn't there, but he sees it.
And receive more internet attention than any other creature in recorded history. But here's the thing. Humans never actually domesticated cats. Not really. Cats domesticated themselves, and we barely noticed it was happening. To understand how this worked, you have to go back about 10,000 years to one of the most transformative moments in human history, farming. Before agriculture, humans moved constantly. Hunter-gatherers couldn't stockpile food because they were always moving to find more of it. But when humans figured out how to grow grain and stay in one place, everything changed. For the first time in history, humans had something they had never had before: surplus, stored food, piles of grain sitting in clay jars and wooden containers, waiting out the winter or the dry season. And that surplus immediately attracted something: rodents. Mice and rats flooded every human settlement that stored grain. They were relentless, destructive, and almost impossible to stop. A single pair of mice can produce hundreds of offspring in a year. They contaminated food, spread disease, and ate through months of carefully stored harvest in a matter of weeks. For early farming communities, a rodent infestation wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a matter of survival.
Yep.
Then, quietly, cats started appearing at the edges of villages. Not because humans invited them, not because anyone had a plan, but because where there were rodents, there was food. And wildcats were very good at finding food. The wildcat that gave rise to domestic cats, Felis sylvestris libica, was a small, solitary predator from the Middle East and North Africa. Fierce, independent, and deeply suspicious of anything larger than itself. These were not cuddly animals. They were efficient killing machines that had...
That's a bobcat. So, bobcats are very commonplace up the mountain. I've only seen a few, surprisingly, while I've been at work, and they come out at night because cats are nocturnal creatures, at least the wild ones especially. So, like, I was at work and I was about to drive back to the shop after finishing my shift where I was at, and I was taking a turn, and then I just see this massive cat, not huge, not like a mountain lion, which are also up there, but just a bobcat. It's look more of the size of a Maine Coon, really, sitting there, and its ears were just, it literally looked like this, and I had to take a double take because I was just like, what the heck? And it was just sitting there, staring. Its eyes aglow, of course, watching all of us as we were pulling out, because we all met at the same spot. We were all pulling out of the location, and it was just like, oh my gosh, this is my first time seeing it. If I tracked it back to its lair and kidnapped its little ones, I could have gotten $1,000 for each cub. My brother said if he got a hold of one, he'd pay the person $1,000 for bringing him a cub. Yeah, of course, that probably wouldn't happen, but at the same time, I was just like, maybe.
To be roughly the size of a large loaf of bread. But unlike wolves, which had to overcome an enormous behavioral gap to approach humans, wildcats had one crucial advantage. They were already in the right place. The same ecosystems that humans began farming in were also home to these wildcats, and grain storage created an artificial prey concentration that no wildcat could ignore. Mice gathered near human food. Cats gathered near mice. Humans noticed that the cats were killing the mice, and nobody chased the cats away. That's it. That was the entire beginning of the relationship. No breeding program, no selection, no intentional domestication. Just mutual tolerance in the shadow of a grain store. But something interesting happened next. Just like with wolves, the wild cats that survived best near humans weren't the most aggressive ones. They were the slightly less terrified ones. The ones that didn't bolt the moment a human looked in their direction. The ones that could sit a little closer to the firelight without panicking. Those cats got more access to the mice that gathered near stored food. They ate better, survived longer, and had more offspring. And their offspring inherited that slightly reduced fear. Over generations, something gradual and invisible was happening. The wild cats living near human settlements were being shaped by proximity to humans. Not intentionally, not consciously, just by the slow pressure of survival. The cats that tolerated humans thrived. The cats that didn't. And here is where cats diverged from almost every other domesticated animal. Dogs were bred, horses were bred, cattle, sheep, goats, all were actively selected and shaped by humans over thousands of years. Cats selected themselves. For most of their domestication history, cats bred with whoever they wanted. Humans weren't choosing which cats reproduced.
Yeah, that's changed now. Where you can get a specific breed of cat. But yeah, it wasn't that way, so.
Which is why, even today, the domestic cat is genetically almost identical to its wild ancestor. If you took a domestic cat and released it in North Africa, it would survive. It would hunt. It would be in almost every meaningful way a wild cat. That happens to also enjoy sitting on warm laptops. So when did humans start actually caring about cats? Egypt. Around 4,000 years ago, cats moved from tolerated pest control to something else entirely. Egyptian art from this period shows cats sitting under chairs, wearing collars, eating from bowls, and being treated as members of households. The Egyptians didn't just like cats, they elevated them to the sacred. The goddess Bastet was depicted as a cat, and later as a woman with a cat's head. Killing a cat in ancient Egypt, even accidentally, could result in execution. When a household cat died, Egyptian families shaved their eyebrows as a sign of mourning. Cats were mummified by the millions. Entire cat cemeteries were filled with carefully preserved bodies, offerings to Bastet preserved for
You know, if the zombie apocalypse was real, and you know how in like the Resident Evil movie, the dead started coming to life, this would be a scary scene right here. Especially with how small they are, with how quick and agile they are, and with the fact that now they're undead, feasting for brains. Yeah, we would have no chance. We would have no chance.
Eternity. This was not the behavior of a society that viewed cats as pest control. This was worship. But why Egypt? Part of the answer might be scale. Egypt's agricultural surpluses were enormous. The Nile Valley produced grain on a scale that attracted rodents in massive numbers, which meant cats that controlled those rodents provided enormous value. A civilization that depended on stored grain for survival had every reason to protect and celebrate the animal that protected that grain. And cats were smart enough to understand the opportunity. Egyptian paintings show cats sitting calmly in the middle of busy households, comfortable, well-fed, treated with care. These were not wild animals tolerating humans at a distance. These were cats that had discovered something remarkable. Humans were useful. Humans provided warmth, food, and safety, and all you had to do was let them occasionally touch you. The deal was extraordinary from the cat's perspective. But the Egyptian relationship with cats had a strange consequence. Because cats were sacred, exporting them was technically illegal. The Egyptian government actually ran operations to retrieve cats that had been smuggled out of the country. But cats spread anyway. Phoenician traders almost certainly carried cats on their ships, because ships carrying grain also attracted rats, and cats were the most effective solution. Greek and Roman traders followed. Cats spread across Europe, into Asia, eventually across the entire connected world. Everywhere grain was stored and traded, cats appeared. They crossed oceans in ships not because anyone decided to bring them, but because the same logic that had always driven their proximity to humans still applied. Where there is food, there are rodents. Where there are rodents, there are cats. The Black Plague devastated medieval Europe, killing somewhere between 30 and 60% of the population. One factor that is often overlooked is what happened to cats in medieval Europe. The Catholic Church, in certain periods and regions, associated cats with paganism and witchcraft. Cats, particularly black cats, were persecuted. Populations declined in some areas, and rodent populations...
Some places still view black cats as like a form of witchcraft and evil. Even in the United States, there are still some places that are... very, very, very barbaric.
Predictably grew. Fleas on those rodents carry disease. The connection is not certain, but it is suggestive. The animal that humans had accidentally cultivated as a pest controller for 10,000 years was being eliminated, and the pests came back. Today, the relationship between cats and humans is one of the strangest in the animal kingdom. Dogs actively seek human approval. Cats don't. Dogs were shaped to read human emotions, to track eye gaze, to understand pointing gestures. Cats largely were not. A dog that misbehaves often shows guilt. A cat that knocks something off a table...
My little dog, or me and my wife's big four-legged child, always looks like this. And I swear he looks like this because he knows he will get attention. Because every time I see him like this, I'm like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? And then he starts shaking his tail. And because you start patting him and everything. But he always looks like this. Every time. He never has his ears up. It's kind of like that scene in Bolt where the cat Mittens is teaching Bolt how to beg. And literally, that face that Bolt does in that movie is literally how Bolt looks. My Bolt, my little Bolt, looks when, like, all the time. All the time. His ears down, his head kind of that, his eyes a little big, like a little watery.
Misbehaves often shows guilt. A cat that knocks something off a table watches it fall with the focused attention of a scientist conducting an experiment. And yet cats have found something dogs never quite managed. They have convinced humans to care for them without requiring the same level of behavioral adaptation that dogs went through. Cats are not domesticated in the way most animals are. They exist somewhere between wild and tame, between independent predator and household companion. They play by their own rules, maintain their own schedules, and somehow made this seem not like a flaw, but like a feature. There is something worth pausing on in the middle of all this history. Somewhere in ancient Egypt, a child probably played with a kitten while their parents cooked nearby. The kitten bit the child and then immediately started purring and rubbing against them. The child probably laughed. The parents probably watched. And nobody in that moment was thinking about evolution or agriculture or the Nile or civilizations that hadn't been built yet. They were just watching a small animal be unexpectedly charming. Cats never asked to be our companions. They were solitary hunters living perfectly well without us. But they noticed an opportunity and they took it. And 10,000 years later, there are 600 million of them living in our homes. Tonight, your cat is probably ignoring you. It might be staring at a wall, sleeping on your face, or carrying out some private agenda you will never fully understand. But it chose to be near you. Not out of need, not out of training. Out of something that began thousands of years ago in a grain store at the edge of a village where a small, fierce wildcat decided that humans might be worth tolerating after all. And given everything that came next, that decision worked out rather well. For both.
Honestly, for both of them, yeah. Black cats are kind of considered a sign of bad luck in India, but because of Hindus being a majority, hurting them never happens despite the superstition. Yeah, I think that's kind of like, what was it? There's was a film where a person was traveling somewhere and then a black cat crossed his path, and the superstition, I think, from that film was where he wasn't able to continue until someone else had crossed that path before him. Then he could continue. And he was just like the entire film, he was like standing there waiting. I thought that was like a funny little scene. But yeah, I mean, that's a good thing, because I know in Hindu culture, it's like animals, treating animals humanely is like very important. Incredibly important. Not so important around the world, but it is very important in like Hindu culture, which is good, which is absolutely good.
You guys got a video? It's so bad.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Wait like that.